Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Alyssa, and I am the Age Friendly Program Lead here at BC Healthy Communities. We are excited to have you join us to talk about an Indigenous inclusive approach to emergency preparedness in your community. We hope this webinar will share practical tools and community examples showing how inclusive, equitable preparedness strategies can be incorporated at the local level. Next slide. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that BC Healthy Communities resides on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples, including the Wasanich, Songhees, and Esquimalt nations. The ongoing historical relationship of Indigenous peoples with the land is recognized, emphasizing that these relationships are simply not historical, but to continue on to this day. If you would like to take a moment to please chime in the chat your land acknowledgement and where you're tuning in from today, that would be awesome. So, a little bit about BC Healthy Communities. We are a team of planners, public health specialists, and community engagement practitioners operating at the intersection of planning and public health. Here at BC Healthy Communities, we believe that it is possible, but not just possible, but necessary to create communities where it is easy for citizens to be healthy and well. And with that, I am thrilled to announce that we will be launching our 2026 age-friendly grants this coming Monday, January 19th. So I encourage any local and Indigenous governments to check out our website and our application guide. They will be posted in our chat, and there you can find more information about our grants, how to apply, and any questions that you may have. So they opened on Monday, and the application will go live, and we will also have our online webinar, our info session webinar that we call it, in February, where you can learn about the grants, how to apply, and have any questions. So we look forward to seeing applications and working with everyone through our grants this year. Next slide. So a little bit of housekeeping for our webinar today. The speakers will do their presentations, and then we'll be followed by a Q&A period. So please post your questions in the Q&A box. And we also encourage you to use the chat to engage any comments or thoughts with everybody throughout the webinar. And at the end of our webinar, we will post a survey link into the chat, and we strongly encourage and hope that you will answer the survey or take just a few minutes of your time. Your feedback helps us make these webinars and make them better for you in the future. And lastly, please turn off, please turn off any AI recordings, as this webinar will be recorded, and all the registrants from the webinar will receive a link and a resource sheet from the speakers after the webinar is completed. Next slide. So let's get right into it. First, I would like to introduce our speakers, and we have Kaye Bright. She is a strategic partnership and community engagement advisor for the First Nations Emergency Services Society. Kaye is an experienced emergency management professional who has spent more than a decade supporting First Nations communities across BC, strengthening community-led disaster risk reduction and culturally grounded emergency planning. She leads initiatives in capacity building, response coordination, and integrity collaboration that enhances readiness and resilience. And then we have Rex Lynn and Bob Manson from the Resort Municipality of Whistler to talk about their emergency preparedness for older adults assessment and awareness campaign. This project focused on improving emergency preparedness planning to better support the safety, well-being, and social inclusion of older adults in the community. Rex is a planner with a master's degree from the University of Waterloo and brings experience from age-friendly and long-term care planning in the Greater Toronto Area. Since joining the Resort Municipality of Whistler in 2023, his work has focused on advancing age-friendly initiatives alongside housing and land use development. Bob has been with the Resort Municipality of Whistler for 3 years and has a background in healthcare emergency management. He holds a master's degree in disaster and emergency management from Royal Roads University and leads emergency planning, training, and exercises to help build community resilience. So let's get right into it. And I would first like to pass it over to our presenter, Kaye.
Thank you, Alyssa, and thank you to BC Healthy Communities for inviting FNESS to join this important conversation today. It is an honor to be here and to share this space with all of you as we talk about emergency preparedness that support people of all ages and abilities. Before we begin, I invite you to take a moment to recognize the First Peoples whose lands we live and work on every day. I am joining you on the traditional unceded territory of the Tsimshian people, specifically home to the Kitsillas and Kitsim First Nations here in Terrace, whose territories surround the city along the Skinner River Valley. My name is Kaye Bright, as Alyssa mentioned, Strategic Partnerships and Community Engagement here in FNESS. Much of my work is grounded in supporting First Nations communities across the province of BC and learning from elders, community leaders, and families about what safety and preparedness look like through an Indigenous lens. I am grateful for the opportunity to share some of those perspectives today, alongside practical tools and approaches that can support both Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities in building age-friendly and culturally grounded emergency plans. Next slide, please. So the purpose of today's session is to gently shift how we think about emergency preparedness. In many situations, emergency planning has focused mainly on systems, structures, and procedures. Those pieces are important, but they are only one part of the picture. So at the center of emergency are people. People with different abilities, different cultural backgrounds, different lived experiences, and different levels of support. So today we are placing these people at the heart of our conversations, especially the individuals whose needs are often missed or not fully understood. Many of the emergency systems we use today were built with assumptions that do not reflect real life. They assume that everyone can move quickly, that everyone can understand complex alerts, and that everyone can leave their home without assistance. So we know this is not true for many older adults, for many elders, for people with disabilities, or for anyone who relies on family or community support in their daily lives. These individuals are not exception. They are essential part of our community and should be at the center of our planning. So when we talk about being inclusive, we mean truly recognizing the differences in how people receive information, how they move around their community, and how they cope during stressful moments. Some people need information shared through radio or phone calls. Others need messages delivered face to face or through trusted community leaders. Some understand information best when it's simple and clear. So when we talk about accessibility, we are talking about real support. This includes communication that is easy to follow, transportation options that work for people with different mobility needs, and evacuation centers that feel safe, welcoming, and respectful. When we talk about culturally grounded, we are talking about the importance of respecting Indigenous laws, teachings, protocols, languages, and relationships to the land. Many of our Indigenous elders hold knowledge that guides their community during difficult times. Their teachings help people stay emotionally balanced, connected, and supported. So, acknowledging this knowledge and making space for it in emergency planning strengthens the entire approach. By the end of this session, my hope is that you will feel confident thinking about preparedness not only as an operational responsibility, but as something that begins with understanding people. Next slide. So many of our older adults live with day-to-day challenges that may seem manageable during regular times, but these challenges become much more serious during an emergency. For someone who moves slowly or who relies on walker, cane, scooter, or wheelchair, the expectation of leaving home quickly can be overwhelming. Some people depend on oxygen machines or medical devices that must stay plugged in. Others sleep in beds that require power to operate. Many people need medications that must stay cool or be taken at strict times. So these are the kinds of realities that emergency planning must take into account. When an emergency happens, the pressure on older adults may become immediate. A wildfire alert can require fast action. A heat event can worsen existing health conditions, and dense smoke can make breathing difficult for people with respiratory concerns. Also, flooding can cut off mobility routes. So during these moments, there is no time for complex instructions or last-minute decisions. If communications comes too late or is too confusing, older adults may not have time to gather what they need or to find safe transportation. So the results can be fear, anxiety, or dangerous delays. In Indigenous communities, elders experience all of these physical changes, but they also carry emotional and cultural responsibilities that shape how they respond during emergencies. Elders are often the anchors of the community. They guide families, they share their teachings, they speak the language, and they help maintain connection to the land. So when an evacuation forces them away from their home territory, away from gathering places, or away from sacred sites, the emotional impact can be profound. So leaving the land is not simply a physical move. For many elders, it can feel like being pulled away from identity, history, and community spirit. There are also deep memories and difficult experiences that some elders carry. Some live through residential schools, some have memories of being taken from their families or moved without choice. These past experiences can influence how an elder responds when an emergency official tells them it's time to leave. So fear and mistrust can surface quickly, and it is important for emergency teams to understand and respect these feelings because emotional safety is just as important as physical safety. Supporting our elders in a thoughtful and compassionate way strengthens the entire community. When elders feel safe, informed, respected, and included in the planning process, they are able to offer their guidance. Their voices and teachings improve evacuation plans. They strengthen cultural safety practices and shape communication approaches that work better for everyone. So, elders hold knowledge about weather patterns. They know about the land behavior and community relationship that does not appear in scientific reports. So, their insight helps create a more complete understanding of risk and resilience. When we support our elders, we support the community as a whole. Their strength and wisdom become part of their preparedness work, and their well being is directly connected to the well being of everyone around them. Next slide. So, when we talk about community realities, we are recognizing that every group of people has a unique history, a unique way of living, and unique experiences that shape how they respond to emergencies. No two communities are the same. The way a person understands an evacuation order or an emergency alert is influenced by their culture, their age, their health, their past experiences, and the level of support they have around them. So when we understand these differences, we are better able to plan in ways that genuinely reflect the people we serve. For many Indigenous communities, the connection to land is not only practical, but spiritual and emotional. The land is home, it is memory, it is family, it holds language, teaching, ceremony, and identity. Elders often describe the land as something that breathes with them and supports them through every stage of life. So being asked to leave the land, even temporarily, can be deeply unsettling. For some elders, an evacuation can feel like losing a part of their story or being separated from what grounds them. There may also be cultural protocols that need to be respected. This may relate to protection of sacred spaces, medicines, burial sites, or harvesting areas that have been used for generations. These places are not just locations on a map. They hold meaning and responsibility. There are also challenges that may look different but are equally important. Many older adults live on their own and may not have someone checking on them regularly. Others live in remote or rural areas where doctors, pharmacies, and transportations are limited. And some older adults do not drive anymore and rely entirely on neighbors, friends, or community programs for mobility. So communication barriers are common. People may have difficulty hearing or seeing well. Cognitive changes can impact how information is processed too. Some people do not have access to internet or cell service, which means they miss out on important alerts that are delivered online. So even though the experiences of Indigenous and non-Indigenous older adults may differ, there is a shared need across all communities. Everyone needs emergency systems that are easy to understand, respectful of the reality, and reliable. And everyone deserves plans that consider how they move, how they communicate, how they cope, and how they stay connected. So this is what age-friendly preparedness is all about. It asks us to slow down and recognize that people do not experience emergencies in the same way. It encourages us to adjust our planning, our communication, and our supports so that no one is forgotten and no one is left behind. Next slide. I think slide before that one, Alyssa. Thank you. Oh, a little bit more. Oh, before that.
Go back before. One more before. Right there.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, so effective communication, it is one of the most important parts of emergency preparedness. So when we say effective communication, we are talking about more than sending out information, right? We are talking about making sure people actually receive the message, understand what it means, and feel confident enough to act on it. So this requires us to meet people where they are rather than expecting everyone to access information in the same way. Many emergency systems today rely heavily on technology. So alerts are posted on social media or sent through mobile phones. And this works well for people who use these platforms on a regular basis, but it leaves out many of our older adults and many elders because not everyone has a mobile phone. Not everyone uses apps. Not everyone checks on the internet daily. So some elders do not use digital devices at all, and some simply prefer more personal communication. For many elders, the most trusted sources of information uh, are commonly from the community leaders, local radio stations, or in-person announcements. These sources feel familiar to them. It's more respectful and reliable. Many older adults rely on the television or a landline phone for updates. So some prefer printed notices because they can read them more slowly and keep them nearby. Others need someone to sit with them and explain to them what is happening, especially when the information is urgent and emotional. So this kind of personal contact builds understanding and reduces fear. Plain language is essential during emergencies. So when people are stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, their ability to process complex information becomes limited. So if we use technical terms or complicated instructions, important details can be missed. People need clear and calm direction. They need to know when to start preparing, when to leave their home, where to go, and what to bring. Short and simple sentences to help people focus on what matters and also reduce confusion. Cultural and language considerations are also very important, especially in Indigenous communities. Some elders speak their traditional language as their first and most comfortable language. Others may understand English but prefer receiving important information through a trusted community voice. This could be a cultural leader, like I mentioned, a safety worker, or a respected knowledge keeper. So when information comes from someone familiar, elders feel safer and more connected, and they are more likely to follow guidance. So respecting the different ways people receive and understand information builds trust. So when people feel that communication is delivered in a way that honors their identity, their learning style, and their cultural background, they feel valued. This trust is what motivates people to take action, especially during emergencies when every minute matters. Next slide. So evacuations are some of the most stressful and overwhelming moments that a community can experience. For older adults, the stress is often much greater because they may have additional needs that must be considered before they can leave their homes safely. Many older adults require time to gather essential items. This includes medications, mobility devices, important documents, and personal items that help them feel grounded and secure during a frightening situation. These items are not optional for them. They are vital to their health and well-being. Some older adults cannot pack independently. They may struggle to bend, lift, or moved around their home quickly. So others may feel confused or anxious when they are being rushed. These individuals may need someone to sit with them and help them decide what to bring. They may need support to physically place items in bags because without this help, they risk leaving behind important medications or devices that they depend on. So health needs become extremely important during an evacuation. Many people live with medical routines that cannot be interrupted without serious consequences. Some need medication at specific times, and others require refrigeration for medication or must stay connected to power oxygen machines or other medical equipment. So evacuation can actually disrupt all of these routines. If those needs are not planned for ahead of time, older adults may experience pain, confusion, or dangerous health complication. Sudden changes in environment can also worsen existing conditions, especially heart conditions, breathing problems, and anxiety. Transportation is often one of the biggest barriers during evacuations. Not everyone drives, and many older adults no longer feel comfortable driving long distances or even at night. Some rely completely on caregivers, family members, or community drivers, but if these supports are not available, people can feel stranded and afraid. This is why communities need a clear transportation plan in place before an emergency happens. It is important to know who will need assistance, who will need a vehicle that can accommodate a wheelchair or walker, and who might need to sit near the front to hear instructions clearly. For elders, evacuation planning must also include cultural safety. Physical safety is important, but cultural and emotional safety matters just as much. When elders are removed from their home community, they may feel disconnected from their culture, their language, and their support systems. Reception centers should be prepared to welcome our elders in ways that respect their identity. This can include offering quiet rooms for prayer or reflection, providing space for ceremony, and ensuring access to cultural workers and creating environments with families and nation members to be kept together. These supports help elders feel seen, respected, and grounded during stressful time. So cultural safety also helps reduce fear and trauma, right? It reminds elders that they are valued and that their teachings and presence matter. Because when evacuation spaces feel welcoming and culturally respectful, people are better able to cope with stress and uncertainty. Next slide. So resilience does not start the day an emergency happens. It begins long before that. It grows from the relationship that people have with one another and from the sense of belonging that exists within a community. So when people feel connected, they are most likely to look out for one another. They share information, they offer support during stressful moments. And this is especially important for our older adults who may experience loneliness or limited daily contact with others. So when someone checks on them regularly or when they feel part of a community circle, their sense of safety increases even before an emergency takes place. In many Indigenous communities, community care is not something that is created only for emergencies. It is a cultural teaching that is practiced every day. People naturally check on elders. They deliver food, they share medicines, they help with small tasks, and make sure that no one is left alone for too long. So these acts of care reflect deep teachings about respect and responsibility. They strengthen emotional well-being and they reinforce that the community's ability to respond together when something goes wrong. These strengths can easily be woven into emergency planning, right? For example, a wellness check team can be made out of community members who already visit elders regularly. It can be a buddy system that can pair young people with elders to create ongoing relationship of care and support. So these systems honor cultural teachings while also improving safety. In non-Indigenous communities, there are also strong networks of care. Senior groups, home support workers, informal caregiver networks, and volunteer teams all play important roles in keeping older adults connected and supported. These groups often know who needs extra help, who lives alone, or who may be struggling with health conditions. They're often the first to notice when someone is not doing well, and they can step in during heat waves by checking on vulnerable individuals. They can help during snowstorms when older adults cannot leave their homes. They can assess during smoke events by ensuring that people have clean air spaces or access to cool places during an extreme heat. Community centers are another key part of building resilience. They often serve as a natural gathering places. People know where they are, they feel comfortable walking inside, and they trust the environment as well. So during emergencies, these centers can transform into safe spaces, with clean air, with cooling areas during heat events, or information hubs where community members can ask questions, receive updates, and connect with support workers. These spaces can help people feel grounded and supported too. So by strengthening social networks, communities reduce their reliance on formal responders, right? This is important because during an emergency, first responders and emergency staff can be stretched thin. So when neighbors check on neighbors, when elders are supported by the community, and when local groups help identify who needs help, the entire community becomes more prepared. Next slide. So traditional knowledge plays an essential role in emergency management. In many Indigenous communities, knowledge about the land has been carried through countless generations. This knowledge has been built through observation, lived experience, and teachings passed down from family to family. It is based on a relationship with the land, and that has existed for thousands of years. Because of this long and deep connection, elders often have insights that modern systems may not notice or may not fully understand. Elders can often recognize subtle environmental changes long before scientific tools can detect them. They may observe how animals move differently when weather shifts are coming. They may notice changes in the sound or clarity of water that suggest something is happening upstream. They may also understand how wind patterns change during certain seasons or how the land responds after long periods of dryness. This knowledge does not replace scientific data. Instead, it adds important context that strengthens it. When traditional knowledge and scientific information come together, communities have a more complete picture of the risks that they face. Traditional teachings also provide emotional and relational guidance during emergencies. Many teachings that we get from our elders emphasizes balance, community care, and the importance of keeping relationships strong. These teachings remind people to stay connected or to check on one another and to support those who are struggling. They also help people cope with fear, loss, or uncertainty. And in times of crisis, these teachings often serve as a source of hope and strength. They guide families and communities through the emotional parts of an emergency, which are just as important as physical safety needs. It is important to understand that traditional knowledge is not something that can simply be taken, recorded, or used without permission. These teachings belong to the community. They carry cultural meaning and responsibility. Each nation decides what knowledge can be shared, when it can be shared, or who has authority to speak about it. Emergency teams must respect these decisions. They must follow cultural protocols, listen to elders and knowledge keepers, and ensure that teachings are represented accurately and respectfully. This is part of building trust and honoring the community's identity. When traditional knowledge is included in emergency planning, it strengthens the entire approach. It creates plans that are rooted in local identity, local experience, and local history. It reminds everyone involved that emergency management is not technical, it's not relational, it is absolutely cultural. It is grounded in the community itself. So integrating this knowledge helps build trust between emergency teams and the community. It helps create plans that people feel connected and are confident on following. Next slide. So tools and templates give communities practical ways to move from ideas into real action. Age-friendly planning can feel big or overwhelming at first, but these tools break the work into simple steps that are easier for teams to understand and apply. So an age-friendly checklist helps communities understand where they are already strong and where they may need to build more support. So, for example, a checklist may ask if your community has more than one way to reach elders and older adults during an emergency. It may include about whether evacuation vehicles are accessible or whether reception centers have quiet areas where elders can rest or pray. It may ask if your staff or volunteers have training in cultural safety. So these questions help communities see practical changes they can make, right? Even one improvement, even such creating a list of door-to-door communication for volunteers can make a big difference during an emergency. Mobility and health needs registries as well are another important tool. So these registries help identify who will need additional help during an evacuation or a heat event or a smoke event. For example, you may have elders who cannot drive, individuals who rely on oxygen tanks, or people who need assistance walking down their front steps. So a registry will allow responders to know ahead of time who requires support and what kind of support they need. So these lists must be treated with respect. Privacy and community protocols must guide how information is collected, stored, and shared. When created with care, these registries can prevent people from being left behind and can save lives. So communication templates are also extremely helpful. This could be pre-written messages that can be adapted quickly during an emergency. They support clear and consistent communication across radio announcements, printed notices, social media, and in-person updates. These templates can be translated into Indigenous languages, adapted into plain language formats, or personalized by community leaders. So that makes the message easier to trust and easier to understand too. Cultural safety guides are another meaningful tool. This guide helps emergency teams understand what cultural respect looks like during evacuations. For example, the guide may explain the importance of keeping families and nation members together. It may highlight the need for a quiet room where prayer ceremony can take place. It may explain respectful communication practices or identify cultural workers who can support elders at reception centers. And these guides create safer and more welcoming environments for everyone. So all of these tools can be adjusted based on the size of a community. A large community with many staff may have a detailed templates, and a smaller community can simply create a paper list. So even these small steps create meaningful improvements in how a community responds. So tools do not need to be perfect to be effective. What matters is that they reflect the community and the people who live there. So any action that helps keep elders safe, respected, and supported is an important and valuable step forward. Next slide. So thank you all for taking part of this conversation today. I want to acknowledge the time, care, and presence each of you has brought into this space. Age friendly and Indigenous inclusive repair is not simply another task in emergency management. It is a way of showing respect for people. It is a way of demonstrating compassion for those who have carried our communities forward through their knowledge and their teachings, their hard work, and their lived experience. So it is a way of honoring the people who have shaped us and who continue to guide us. So when we talk about supporting elders again and older adults, we are talking about strengthening the very foundation of our communities. Elders and older adults hold stories, memories, traditions, and wisdom that cannot be replaced. So they help keep our families together. They're often the first to comfort us and the first to offer guidance and the first to remind us of what truly matters. So, when they feel safe and supported, the sense of safety extends to children, to our families, to our neighbors, and the entire nation. So, this becomes a ripple that moves through the community, creating strength and unity. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you so much, Kay. That was wonderful with all that information. And we're going to get right into with Rex and Bob's presentation with the Resort Municipality of Whistler.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Rex. I'm the planning analyst at the Resort Municipality of Whistler, and we have Bob, our emergency program coordinator, here to co-presenting with me. Next slide, please. First, I would like to acknowledge that the Resort Municipality is grateful to be on the shared unceded territory of Lil'wat people, known in their language as Lil'wat and the Squamish people, known in their language as Squamish. We respect and commit to a deep consideration of their history, culture, and stewardship. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here's our agenda. I will first go over our project objective, methodology, assessments, and campaign strategies, and I will hand over to Bob. He will go over our existing emergency preparedness and implementation in Whistler. Next slide. The RMOW is grateful to receive funding from BCHC to further advance our age-friendly initiatives. With the Stream 2 funding from BCHC in 2023, the RMOW was able to initiate a study on emergency preparedness for older adults in Whistler. The project objectives are to consult with the members of older adult community in a meaningful and inclusive manner to assess whether existing emergency plans include the needed direction and the resource required to meet the unique needs of older adults both during and after emergency situation, and to enhance the community's ability to proactively address the challenges and vulnerabilities faced by the older adults by providing older adults, their caregivers, and wider community with key information in advance of emergency situation. Next slide. A consulting firm was hired for this project. The planning team and the consultants worked together to lead the community engagement and assisted with the assessments, analysis, and the report writing. The assessment involved an environmental scan followed by community engagement. The environmental scan consists a brief of analysis of the peer review literature and non-peer review best practice content, followed by the review of the RMOW's existing plans, resource, and practices, and a consideration of practices in similar size BC municipalities. The engagement process consists of focus groups and interviews and a meeting with the RMOW's accessibility and inclusion community. Two focus groups were held in Whistler. The first was targeted towards older adults and their caregivers, while the second one was for the service providers. Individuals who could not attend the focus group were offered an interview at the day and time of their convenience. Participants provided feedback in a facilitated conversation. The consultation questions were designed to understand the current state of preparedness in the community. They also focused on understanding the information sources the resource participants relied on for emergency preparedness and what additional information could help Whistler's older adults to prepare for and respond safely to an emergency. Next slide. The assessment was focused on enhancing the Whistler emergency program, which aims to prepare the RMOW and the Whistler community for significant emergencies and disasters. The overall purpose for the needs assessment was identify whether existing emergency plans, resources, and practices include the direction required to meet the unique needs for older adults in emergency situations, and consider ideas to improve the age friendliness of the RMOW approaches to emergency preparedness. The assessment recognized the emergency planning is focused across three phases: the preparation, response, and recovery. For each phases, the discussion then organized according to three subsections to understand older adults' needs, understanding RMOW's existing plans, resource, and practices, and assessing the existing plans, resource, and practices. More details will be available in our final report that will be provided after this presentation. Next slide, please. So based on the assessment result, the second part of the project is to consider an awareness campaign strategy that aims to reduce reliance on emergency services and promote a more resilient community overall. The need for an awareness campaign was further reiterated during community consultation for this project. In particular, the consultation highlighted that the older adult participants felt they lacked information about where to find further guidance on emergency preparedness, evacuation procedures, and support during an emergency. The awareness campaign strategy has several components, and I will highlight the objective, slogan, and key message in the next three slides. Next slide, please. The specific objective of campaign are to increase the knowledge and awareness of older adults and their caregivers about the risks and possible complications of emergencies, including the use of clean and plain language information about the resource that can help them prepare, respond, and recover with a goal of self-reliance. To encourage the participation of older adults and their caregivers in the planning and management process, to create resources that are appropriate and sensitive to the needs of older adults, and to encourage the collaboration and coordination and leverage existing strengths and resources among the RMOW, the community partner, and community members in addressing the emergency preparedness needs for older adults. Next slide. After considering engagement feedback, the final report proposed the following message as one option for campaign slogan: Ready today, safe tomorrow, helping prepare older adults for emergencies. Next slide. The strategy key message focus on four themes. The first is emergency can happen anytime, anywhere, and affect anyone, especially older adults with specific needs or health challenges. The second is older adults and their caregivers can take proactive steps to prepare for emergencies, such as making an emergency plan, building an emergency kit, stay informed, and get involved. Thirdly, older adults and their caregivers are not alone in facing emergencies and can access various resources and support from the municipality, its partner, and the community. Lastly, older adults and their caregivers have valuable skills and experience that can contribute to communities' emergency preparedness and response, and they can also share their knowledge and feedback with others. So now I'm handing over to Bob to talk about our emergency program in Whistler. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bob Manson. I'm the Emergency Program Coordinator here in Whistler, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the resilience in our community. And one of the things I just want to note is that normally I do a 1 to 2 hour presentation when I do public education and information sessions, but I'm going to boil that down into a very few minutes just to touch on some of the things that we do. And one of those things we really focus on is how to build a resilient community. So let's talk a little bit about that first. Next slide, please. So what is a resilient community? To us, it's a community that can better withstand an emergency event. So we know what the kind of hazards are that we live with that are around us. We understand that, for example, fire is something that's normal and a normal part of a forest in the landscape. It wants to be on the land. Fires want to be able to do their thing here, and we need to be able to learn and understand that and find the things that we can do so we can live alongside it. Another thing that defines a resilient community is one that's better able to help itself, so that we're more reliant, more capable of looking after each other and ourselves, and that includes everyone. Different people are going to have different levels of resiliency. Different people are going to have different levels of needs, whether it's linguistic, mobility, or whatever it might be. We need to be prepared to be able to help those who need a little extra assistance. And ultimately, a resilient community is one that can recover quickly. If we can better withstand that emergency, if we are better able to look after ourselves and help each other, then we can certainly recover more quickly and retain that sense of community without having to lose it during an emergency. Next slide, please. So a little bit about us. Who are we? The Resort Municipality of Whistler is one of 14 resort municipalities in the province of British Columbia. We are located in the coastal mountains of BC. We have year-round attractions and events. Our location puts us about a 2-hour drive away from downtown Vancouver. So we're a bit of a ways isolated out in the forest in the mountains where we like to be, but that also brings with it certain challenges. We have a resident population of approximately 15,000 and a peak population during an event on a busy summer weekend, for example, of somewhere around 65,000. So that's a very large number of people who are in our community who are not residents, but are still part of our responsibility in order to plan for and assist during an emergency. Some of our challenges, just a few of them, we really only have one main evacuation route through the community. We do have a secondary highway that goes north from here, but primarily we have a highway that goes north that's capable of handling higher capacity, and that's our main evacuation route. That would take us to Vancouver, and it is a windy, long highway through the mountains and has certain challenges that go along with it. We have a heavy reliance on just-in-time deliveries, so if we're ever impacted by that highway being washed out or buried under a landslide or rockfall or something like that, we might have challenges with food and pharmaceuticals and things like that that we need to be able to provide to people who might be stranded here for some time. And another challenge that we have that a lot of other communities may or may not have, we have estimated somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,400 people here without access to a vehicle. And that to us is about 175 busloads. And it's going to be a challenge to mobilize that number of buses to move that volume of people. So part of our public education system has been focused on how do we help those people help themselves. And we tell people that if you are one of those people, you don't have access to a vehicle, find a seat in someone else's and do it now before the emergency so you have a plan in place and you know how you're going to get out of here if we do order an evacuation. It might be with your landlord, a coworker, someone else that you know who just happens to have an empty seat in their vehicle. Make the plan so that you've got that seat. And the other thing we tell people who are evacuating who do have a vehicle, if you do have an empty seat, find somebody to put in it. Help us help them so we can get everybody out of here safely during an evacuation if an event is that urgent. Next slide, please. From the reports that we were working on that Rex was talking about and other reports, there's the one from the Red Cross that's shown there. We love those kind of things because they help inform us on how to do our job better. And part of the messaging there is helping us work on things that might be relevant to older folks and their needs. And some of the recommendations from those, I just want to touch on those so that we can just focus on them. One was to improve messaging for the needs of older adults in our public emergency preparedness seminars. As I say, I do workshops from time to time, and we want to make sure we include everybody in our community and help address them and help them understand what they can do, what they are empowered to do to help make themselves more resilient. And so we were already doing that, and we already make that a big priority in our presentations and our workshops. And there were some information in those reports that helped us do that a little bit better. Another recommendation was increased access to preparedness information through traditional venues. And by that, we mean print material, in-person workshops and seminars, that sort of thing. Some people might find more comfortable in receiving information in those venues rather than migrating everything over to online and internet and social media tools, acknowledging that other people would like to just sit in a room with other people and be a part of a community who's learning and being better prepared and learning how they can become more resilient. Other recommendations included having emergency services be better prepared for the needs of older adults and others during emergency. Our Whistler Fire Rescue Services has already taken steps to do that. So they include in part of their programs for training their recruits in how to address and work with not only older adults, but also those who are non-English speaking, those who might have mobility issues and other challenges in our community, as well as our ambulance service who've also done the same thing. So we've incorporated that into it. And again, we're always looking for opportunities to improve that in any ways that we can. Next slide, please. One of the things that often comes up in these discussions and recommendations is to establish a registry of older folks or people who might be vulnerable. That's a bit of a challenge for any municipality, and especially so for resort municipalities. And I'll just touch on that in brief. One of the things is that it requires a community to collect and maintain personal and confidential information about its residents, and there are certain challenges associated with that. It's asking municipality to get set up and maintain a database and keep it up to date, and there can be challenges with that. One of the examples I would use is that we might have somebody who's 20 years old who crashed on their mountain bike and has a broken leg and is recovering at home and can't drive and would need assistance during an evacuation. But at some point, that person would go on to such a registry, and in a few weeks, they would need to come off of that registry. And maintaining something at that level requires resources that we don't have. The other big challenge as a resort municipality is, as I say, we've got 65,000 people in our community, and that includes also many people who are here as visitors who have different needs, different vulnerabilities, different special mobility issues that might need assistance, and that changes daily. We are working with our health authority, Vancouver Coastal Health in our case, and they already know who has home care, who they already know where their dialysis patients live, and they can help us help them to make sure that they can get out of the community during an evacuation effectively. Next slide, please. So how do we build a more resilient community? Well, here's some things in a nutshell. One of the things I tell people is make sure you sign up for whatever emergency alert system your community has. We have something called Whistler Alert here, which is actually based on a system called Connect Rocket Community. It works very well for us. It's really well tailored for the visitor community, and it allows people to sign up very quickly and easily. They can even set a date when they're leaving town, and it automatically deletes their account without them having to do anything more, so they're not getting any alerts after they've left. That kind of thing helps appeal to people and helps make it easier for people to sign up. And it also is a system that's so easy without having any downloads or anything. You can sign up the whole family all at one going. So you pull out your phone, enter the phone numbers for all your family members and their phones, and that's all you need to do. And it allows us to push out alerts to everybody during an emergency. So I tell people your first way of knowing there's an emergency, your first way of knowing what to do should be through official channels, and our ability to communicate with our community is through our Whistler Alert. Find whatever your community has and please sign up for it. You don't want to rely on social media. It's notoriously full of misinformation or misinterpreted information, and we don't want to confuse people and send out mixed messages. Have one venue for being able to do that. We also want to make sure we include public education that includes understanding the hazards, our exposures, our vulnerabilities, and what we need to do in order to adapt to them. We are here on this land more as guests. There are things that live on this landscape that need to be able to live and do their thing and run free as they need. And as I say, I include forest fires as part of an example in that. We talk here about how to live with bears in our community and how they need to have their space and we need to avoid conflicts with them. I would like us to think about fire in the same way. It's a normal part of a healthy forest. Forests need to burn from time to time, and I need to convince people that the forest around us that we've come here to enjoy and live amongst does need to burn from time to time, and that's a normal part of this process and this environment. And let's let it do its thing and learn how we can adapt to make our structures more survivable and how we can get out of the way when that sort of thing happens. And that includes acculturating understanding of those risks and impacts, not having people understand that those are things that only ever happen in faraway places to those other people. They can and will happen here at some point. We are going to have a forest fire here at some point, and people need to understand that and accept that and realize that that's part of a risk of living in a community like this. And the job for you in order to live here is to take steps to prepare yourself and understand that you do need to do some things in your home. We have Fire Smart program that's very active in helping our community understand how they can be and live in homes that are more resilient to fires, and understand that you may have to evacuate and perhaps on short notice during an emergency, and that's part of the challenge of living here. Also, we want people to understand that stockpiling emergency supplies is a part of what you need to do as well. If our highway is taken out, as I mentioned, by a landslide or rockfall or something like that, it could be impassable for days to weeks. And that means you need to have the supplies you need, the medications, the food, whatever healthcare treatment you might need in order to be able to get by. in order to be resilient. Build that grab and go bag so that if you are ordered to evacuate, you know what to do and you can grab what you need and take it with you because you've already got it packed, you've already prepared yourself. All you need to be told in that emergency alert is that you're being ordered to evacuate and you already know what you need to do next. That includes taking the things you need with you so that you can be self-sufficient while evacuating. There's some pictures there of things that you might want to include in your grab and go bag. And in my workshop, we go over in great detail the kind of things that people who, as I say, are older folks who have special needs need to think about in terms of medication and, as I say, access to healthcare treatments when they do evacuate. I had the great pleasure of working with BC Renal when I was working in healthcare. And one of the things they do is they have their patients learn to evacuate at the evacuation alert phase. They've already got a plan on where they're going to stay. They know they can take some food with them that's appropriate for them. They know where they're going to get their next treatment because they've already planned for and set up things in place so that they are ordered to evacuate. It's no problem for them because they can't just eat regular restaurant food. They know they have to have access to special food and special diet. They can take care of that themselves, have it already in place, have a friend or relative that they're going to go stay with, and they'll have the things they need when they get there. That's part of planning and being resilient. And one of the things we evacuated a community of Williams Lake a number of years ago, our patients took off literally in 7 different directions. But they were all resilient. They were all able to look after themselves. And we found that they got the treatment that they needed. They were able to take care of themselves. And that's the kind of level of resilience that we try to impart in people when we can, and acknowledging not everybody can achieve that level of resilience. We're working on building neighborhood programs. This is something I would encourage each of you in your community to look up online. Does your community have neighborhood emergency programs? These are systems where we teach people to help your neighbors, help your community be more resilient by being able to work together with your neighbors to understand who needs that transportation assistance, who amongst you might need some assistance in moving. Just being able to help your neighbors helps our community. And a definition of emergencies is one where the emergency response capacity is overwhelmed. So if neighbors can help neighbors as part of the emergency, then that helps us all build a more resilient community. And of course, having plans for yourselves, plans for your family, that helps you and your family be more resilient. Next slide, please. Now, this slide is meant to look jumbled and confusing because this is the kind of state of mind you might find yourself in when we order an evacuation. So if you look down at your phone and then there's a message there saying that you are now ordered to evacuate, and in the case of British Columbia, it is a legal order. It is a crime to refuse an evacuation order with the new legislation. So it's not something that we're suggesting. It's not something that we're encouraging. It is an order to evacuate. You must evacuate. So at that point, you might find in your head a whole bunch of questions. What do we do? Where do we go? How do we get there? And trying to answer those questions during the emergency is going to increase stress, it's going to increase chaos and challenges for you, and it may be very difficult for you to find those answers and during the event. So I encourage people to sit down now, appreciate that evacuation is a very real thing that could happen to you at some point. Think about these questions and answer these questions now. Do you have someplace to go? A friend, a relative who you can go stay with in another city? That's your plan. You're going to go there. If you don't have that as a place to go, do you have a hotel you can go and stay at? Well, have a phone number in your plans. You can actually call them now, make a reservation so you actually have a place to go when you get there, and it's not going to be overwhelmed and have no space for you when you get there. Think about it at that level. How do I need to be able to look after myself and my family? What do we need to do to be resilient? So all I need to be told is that we are ordered to evacuate. Great. I can take it from here. I need to pick up my neighbor because she has some mobility issues and she needs some transportation. That's our plan. I'm going to go get her. We've got room in the car. Get the kids, get the grab and go bag, get the dog, get everything that we need for the dog, and we're going to get in the car and we've got someplace to go and we've planned for it. We know what to do. Next slide, please. Here's something to think about. We've all heard be resilient for 72 hours, plan for, prepare for 72 hours. In the states of Washington and Oregon a number of years ago, they did some research about what they would do with that big earthquake that ever happened that would impact them. And they realized with their coastal highways and the highways that go through mountain passes, they would all be pretty severely impacted by a major earthquake. And they realized that there's nothing they can do in 72 hours. It's unrealistic to expect people to have emergency services just show up with the food, the water, and the supplies that they need after just 72 hours because the impacts will just be too high. Other states like Wyoming have joined into that as well, realizing that from experience, looking back at the emergencies and disasters that we've had, even here in Canada. If you remember that ice storm we had in eastern Canada a number of years ago, where people were without power and isolated for weeks, we need to think about that as the realistic expectation of what we can do for ourselves during an emergency. Again, we have certain vulnerabilities to our main supply route. If that gets impacted, we may be here only able to look after ourselves for a couple of weeks. Can we do that? Can we at least get our resident population to think about that, prepare for that, and that way we can be more resilient. And that way we can focus more of our attention on our guests, our visitors, who may be many, and provide them with the assistance that they need. Next slide, please. One of the other things that we're doing is we're updating our public education system in terms of our evacuation information. This is a brochure that we've just renewed. We've had an old one that's due for replacement. So we updated it with some new information. And one of the things that we changed there, as you can see on the map, we used to have a zone system. We had numbered zones for evacuations. We had muster points for evacuees without access to a vehicle. And we've done away with all of that. And the reason for that is it increased a lot of stress in people because now you needed to know what number of evacuation zone am I in? Because if I evacuate zones 7 through 10, now you got to go look at a map and try to figure out which zone you're in. We are lucky in that part of our, well, all of our community is basically broken up into very clearly defined neighborhoods, and each of those neighborhoods has its own name. So we're going to refer to our evacuation notification by those neighborhood names. People already know where they live, they know their neighborhood, they know its name, and they hear that name as part of an evacuation order. They don't have to worry about trying to figure out if they're included or not. The other thing is using one of our bus routes that travels through town, our number 10 bus, rather than evacuation muster points, we would just say use the existing bus system that you're already familiar with the bus stops you're already familiar with, know how to find them, know how to get your way to them. There's more of them than we had muster points in the past, and that way we can help get people out of here. Next slide, please. That's it for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of our presenters. That was wonderful, really great information. We are just going to post the link to the survey in the chat for those who do have to go. I know we ran right up until our full time, but I do want to provide any time, a little bit of time for any questions that any participants may have. So I'll leave just a few moments. If you need to go, please, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for tuning in today. But for those who may have any questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll remain on the line here for a couple of minutes to answer that. But thank you so much for coming, and we do have our survey in the chat, and we'd be very grateful if you just took a few minutes of your time to fill out that survey to help make these webinars better for you. So please let us know if you have any questions right now. Wonderful. Well, that looks like that includes our webinar for today. Kaye, Rex, and Bob, thank you again so much for this wonderful information and the time that you took to come and present with us today. We are really grateful. We had a great turnout, and you gave us a lot of things to think about and important things to learn about emergency preparedness. So thank you again to our wonderful speakers, and thank you for everyone who attended to our webinar today. We hoped you appreciated everything that we learned, and if you would please fill out the survey, and you will also receive a recording and a resource sheet from every one of the presenters. We hope you have a great rest of the day. Yes.